This is 20 Minutes of Impact from the United States Energy Association Power Sector Podcast. I'm Herman K. Trabish. I've covered the power sector since 2006, and I currently report for Utility Dive. In this episode of the podcast series on virtual power plants, or VPPs, Hannah Bascom, General Manager of Uplight, and Nick Chaset, CEO of Octopus Energy US, are going to describe the just announced acquisition of a majority share of leading power system software provider Uplight by Octopus, an international aggregator of distributed energy resources, or DER, in partnership with Schneider Electric, which is likely to lead to the first global energy transition supermajor. Hannah's almost two-decade career began in Pacific Gas and Electric customer programs and led later to pioneering VPP programs with Nest Smart Thermostats at Google. Nick's over two-decade career in clean energy policy has included private sector work with companies like Exelon and Ava Community Energy, and public sector work as a special advisor for DER to California Governor Jerry Brown, and Chief of Staff to California Public Utilities Commission President Michael Picker. So we're going to start by hearing from both of them. Let's start with you, Nick. Give us your overview of what the acquisition means for Octopus, and then we're going to get Hannah's overview of what it means for Uplight. Go ahead, Nick.
So Octopus has built a global business in retail competitive markets where we're able to go direct to consumer, and we've had tremendous success doing so, serving almost 12 million households all over the world. That opportunity set in the US, though, it's far more limited in the US than it is in Europe, where we had built the business over the last decade. Over the last handful of years, we have operated a retailer in Texas and have had some really great experience and success engaging with our customers and their thermostats and their electric vehicles. But in most of the US, there's not that same opportunity to go direct to consumer. And so a few years ago, we decided to launch an effort that we're calling Flexibility as a Service, where we bring the best of Octopus as a product to partner with utilities and engage with their customers. I think we quickly learned, though, that scaling that business required a specific level of expertise and depth of knowledge and technology specialization that we just have not built in the US to date. And so we started exploring opportunities for partnership and very quickly came into contact with the Uplight team and had great conviction that this is the team that we wanted to back to scale the Octopus model and grow our interests with U.S. utilities across the U.S. and North America, and then over time, the rest of the world in vertically integrated markets. So just made a lot of sense, very complementary capabilities, very complementary visions of the world, and we couldn't be happier to be where we are with Uplight today.
Interesting. Okay, Hannah, you're up, but I want to mention how wise Nick's choice was in picking Uplight, because I know you guys are at the cutting edge of what VPPs can do and will do very soon. And of course, Schneider Electric backing you makes it even better. But go ahead, give us your overview of this acquisition.
Yeah, thanks, Herman. Delighted to be here. So Octopus recently acquired a majority in Uplight, pending regulatory approval. We are really excited for a few things, I guess. So one is this investment, which is actually partnered with Schneider Electric, enables Uplight to continue to be an independent provider of all of our programs and continue to accelerate the innovation that we have on the demand stack. And rewind 5 or 6 years ago, Schneider came in as a strategic investor, and we found many opportunities to partner with them on integrated DERMS and just up-leveling the capabilities that we have, the capabilities that they have to better jointly serve our clients. And we are thrilled to be in a position to do those same kind of partnerships and engagements with both Octopus as well as Kraken, which was recently demerged from Octopus, and it's providing CIS software to utilities here in North America. So really excited to continue to double down on the suite of offerings that Uplight has in the demand stack and to have even kind of more bigger partnership opportunities with both Octopus as well as Schneider going forward.
Interesting. Okay, so let's break that down just a little bit. Hannah mentioned DERMS. We're going to talk about that at some length in a few minutes, but Distributed Energy Resource Management Systems is what DERMS, DERMS stands for. And I guess Octopus worked with Kraken using their technology. Is that right, Hannah? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, Nick is probably the expert here on the history of Octopus and Kraken, so we'll turn it over to him.
Sure. Nick, am I right that you were using Kraken technology for your distributed energy resource management system, or DERMS, and now you're moving in, at least in the U.S., to this very sophisticated platform
it's actually a little more nuanced than that, right? So it's
Oh,
not that Octopus is not going to be working with Kraken. We actually are, kind of all in on our partnership with Kraken in the Octopus business. So
good.
where Octopus serves customers directly, we operate the entirety of the business on the Kraken platform, from meter to cash billing system to flexibility management. And it's really that power of that integrated solution where you can think about designing rates, billing customers, providing customer service, and optimizing devices all in a single platform that has really allowed Octopus to have a lot of the success that it's had to date. The Uplight relationship is different, right? Uplight is going to continue to operate as an independent company, and Octopus is going to be finding ways to partner with Uplight, bring what we do best, which is engage with customers, create delightful experiences for consumers who maybe aren't used to the utility interaction being one they look forward to. Layer that into what Uplight is doing to be able to go deeper with the customer, while also looking for opportunities to partner with Kraken and bring the Kraken solution in where it makes sense. And I'll give you a specific example. You often hear from large U.S. utilities that, hey, I would love to offer more dynamic rates or more time of use rates, but my existing legacy CIS CRM system literally doesn't allow me to do so. One such utility once told me, oh, we would love to implement that new rate, but every time we implement a new rate, we have to deprecate an old one. They're literally limited. They cannot offer more than a set number of rates. That's sort of madness, right?
Yeah.
And Kraken fundamentally changes that dynamic, right? And it allows for just so much more dynamism, so much more creativity. And so we think there's tremendous opportunity for Kraken, Octopus, and Uplight to really bring the best of all three to bear for U.S. utilities at scale.
The more I hear you guys talk, the more certain I am that this is going to be a super major in the VPP space. But Hannah, I want to get to your question here because it's very relevant. You mentioned the demand stack. I also think that you guys have talked about having a light touch with customers. That's a very important part of using the demand stack. But I want to explain to folks that are listening, the demand stack concept is you want utilities to consider resources on the demand side and planning very similarly to how they now consider resources on the supply side, like natural gas generation or solar generation. So tell us more about the Uplight demand stack and tell us how you think Octopus's resources in Texas and other places in the US can contribute and expand Uplight's reach.
Yeah. You did a pretty elegant job of explaining what it means, but we think of the demand stack really as a framework that aligns customer programs, utility operations, and planning. So that as utilities are thinking about the future of their systems and running the grid, they're incorporating and intentionally investing in customer programs in a way that they haven't always historically done so. And it's not as easy, right, as snapping your fingers and just making it happen. There's usually regulatory engagement, plus a lot of cultural change in utilities themselves to really bring everyone forward to considering those demand side resources as a real part of the supply stack.
Right.
And we are thrilled to have the opportunity to work with Octopus and Kraken because they are just first rate at engaging with customers. So we are already doing a lot on the Uplight side of things. But we know that 80+% of customers say that they would like to participate in a utility program. And, single digit customers are actually doing so. So there is just a ton of headroom there to continue to get more customers on the bus to participate in the utility programs and actually benefit from those programs at a time where affordability is such an important challenge. And there's a virtuous cycle where participation in dynamic rates or VPP or even vanilla efficiency programs helps customers save on their bills, but then it also helps overall affordability for the entire system. Because an electron that you are not using, particularly those that are not being used at a very specific time, in a very specific place where the grid is under stress, is so much more cost effective than going out and having to build, procure, et cetera, lots of new resources.
Absolutely. It makes things more affordable. And tell us, what are just briefly, you kind of went over them, but go over the demand stack. What's in the demand stack?
Yeah. So the base load resource really corresponds with energy efficiency programs. So they could be your weatherization programs, swapping out your old AC for a heat pump, et cetera, right? All of those programs that have been around oftentimes for decades. Then the mid-tier resource really corresponds with time of use rates. You're throttling them up, throttling them down every single day. And then peaking resources really are best represented by VPP programs or demand response programs, whatever it is you want to call them, but multi-asset, multi-class programs that are responding during the time of most acute stress on the grid.
And what's interesting is that you mentioned a virtuous cycle. The other part of the virtuous cycle is that the more customers participate in these programs, the more they find out that you're not stealing their resources, you're not taking control of their resources away from them. And so they want to participate more. That's another way that you on the Uplight side, that Kraken on their side of the equation, and that Octopus will be able to grow these systems. And I want to talk to Nick about that right now. Nick, Uplight has this edge DERMS. It's integrated with a very sophisticated Schneider Electric one DERMS platform. And together, they really make up one of the most sophisticated platforms in the industry. And I wonder, how is Octopus, you touched on it earlier in your comments, but how is Octopus going to use these things to make that customer experience that I was just referring to better for DER owners? And something we haven't touched on, how are you going to use it to show that VPPs can have a really important impact on electricity affordability, not just for DER owners, but for all utility customers?
Yeah, so we think that it starts with what the customer sees on their device, what's at their fingertips. And I think one observation that we have related to the gaps between what is currently available for utility customers and what Octopus gives its customers is that app-based digital experience. We have millions of customers who use the Octopus app every day. They use it to pay their bill. They use it to see how much they owe. They also use it to enroll devices. So we're very excited by the opportunity to make the Octopus app available to customers through the Uplight channel to give them visibility into energy intelligence. So, how much am I paying today? What are some easy ways that I might be able to lower my bill? And then in-app, be able to actually then enroll those devices, whether it be they have a time of use rate that they can then say, hey, I'm going to pursue a pre-cooling strategy for my home. One button, 30 seconds. Suddenly, they're saving $10 to $15 a month by pre-cooling their home, or enrolling their device in more of an event-based or peaking type of program where they might say, hey, 5, 10, 15 times a year, you can go a little bit deeper in load reduction. In return, you're going to pay me, a reward for participation. And so we have conviction that tool set will provide an experience to consumers that will allow us to achieve a scale of participation that is in line with what we see with our customers. So typically, Octopus sees 60, 70% of its customers participating in our flexibility initiatives. And that's where we want to get with U.S. utilities in partnership with Uplight.
Okay, interesting. It sounds to me like what this acquisition and this partnership represent is just a bigger connecting from the control room to the living room, or in the case of electric vehicles, the control room to the garage. And what you're going to be able to do is for those customers who want to be on their apps all the time and really involved, they have that option. For those customers who just kind of want to tell you what they want and leave me alone the rest of the time, you'll be able to handle that through all this technology and the reason I'm describing this is because there's a lot of question in utility people's minds and other people's minds, analysts, how big can the VPP project become? And I want to close out this conversation with getting both of your impressions. The United States is facing this, and not just the United States, the whole world really is facing this boom in electricity demand from large loads like data centers and from electrification. A lot of countries really, they want to get off of oil. They want electric vehicles. China is a leading player there. So some people say VPPs, they're little customer-owned resources. They can never do much more than fill in the gaps in the distribution side. But I don't think everybody's saying that, and I don't think that's what you're going to say, but I'm going to leave it to you. Who wants to go first on that?
I'm happy to dive in. We believe, of course, that the VPP potential is enormous, and lots of really smart people have run analyses that show billions and billions and billions of dollars could be saved every year if we made better use of the customers and the assets in their homes and businesses. I will say we just ran our own analysis in conjunction with Brattle and Evergy on the demand stack. So it wasn't specific to VPPs, it was on the demand stack more broadly. Mm-hmm. And what that found was that between now and 2030, the most low-hanging fruit types of interventions, things like better forecasting, removing friction from enrollment, staggered dispatch and doing more alignment so that customer experiences across load flexibility programs were improved. That would almost double the amount of peak load that is reduced by 2030. And that is going from like 5 to 10% eligible customers enrolled, right? And so we should absolutely get going on this because it has an incredibly meaningful effect, both on the overall system peak you can achieve, but then moreover, the number of hours per year that impacts. So both of those things are really important. And that is nowhere close to being meaningful enough to really drive the sort of participation that we believe is possible with partnerships with entities like Octopus, as well as the utility clients that we're already working with here in North America.
Yeah, and I think it's important, by the way, to add that with all these very sophisticated software platforms that you and Kraken and others are bringing to the system, you can have local impacts that may be outside the realm of the big evening demand impact. And you mentioned this, stagger input so that it has even less effect on customers, making it easier for customers to participate, all contributing to that cycle that you were referring to earlier. Am I right in saying those things, Hannah? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. The AI algorithms that we have now enables us to stagger dispatch, for example, on a portfolio of devices so that they look exactly like a power plant. And so you get that predictive capacity over a set amount of hours. And so that means you're calling on more customers, but for a shorter duration, or staggering their duration. And so overall, we're seeing improved customer experience, lower opt-outs. So that net is really helpful. And then I will also just chime in that the importance of integrating your grid DERMS and your edge DERMS and your ADMS really helps get down to that localized level that you were just mentioning, Herman, because you're not having to call the entire system to get at that particular geography that might be constrained, right? You can actually map the DERs to various circuits and target your dispatch there in a way that enables just much more cost-effective, granular dispatch of the grid.
Okay. Nick, you're coming up, but I just want to add on that it's important for people to understand that this is all about economic growth. This has nothing to do with not growing, with not having to build. We know that over time, our distribution system has to be renewed, that our transmission system has to be expanded, that we need ultimately more generation resources. This is about facilitating that growth, not impeding it or not doing without it. Am I right about that, Nick?
That's exactly right. This is the ultimate speed to power solution because the assets oftentimes are already there. It's just a matter of enrolling them and optimizing them. And so look, we are going to want to deploy new assets as well. We think there's a huge opportunity to deploy batteries across homes and businesses, but that's also going to be fast moving and beneficial to the consumer and the grid. The only thing I'll add is this. Flexibility presents the single most scalable solution to our affordability crisis. In any market where a customer has access to a time of use rate, there's an opportunity to lower their bill if they can optimize their thermostat, their electric vehicle, if they have one, any major electric load. The challenge historically has been it's too difficult to do it, right? It's a challenge to operate across multiple platforms, multiple programs. What we seek to do is make it just so simple and frankly delightful for the consumer to enroll their devices and be able to save money immediately. That then gives you buy-in from the customer, creates trust from the customer to participate in events, which may require a deeper level of behavior change, but far less often. And we think that marrying those two things is a really critical unlock for the demand stack. And it gets to this sort of demand stack, right? You actually want different levels of the demand stack engaging with the same household, whereas historically we've sort of created silos. There are customers that participate in the bottom of the demand stack, energy efficiency, but they don't participate in time of use. They don't participate in time of use optimization, or they don't participate in demand response. We feel like every household should be encouraged to do all three in different ways. That's really, again, delightful, easy to use, and saving them money and also saving the network money.
Okay. Well, it's been delightful to have this conversation with you guys. I really appreciate you coming on and explaining what really represents an enormous potential in the growth of the virtual power plant concept, but has a lot of nuances in the acquisition and partnerships involved. So thank you very much. My guests have been Uplight General Manager Hannah Bascom and Octopus Energy US CEO Nick Chaset. They've described this acquisition by Octopus and how these VPPs are going to spawn a super major across the world in the coming years. I also want to thank my producer, Melissa Brown. And as always, I want to thank our listeners for taking the time to check out USEA Power Sector Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, like, follow, and share with everybody you know our quest for energy transition solutions.